and your analysis of it.
Well, first of all, why did you watch clips of...
I watched the whole thing.
Okay, but you said clips. I was going to get out of my chair here and punch your nose, but you have saved yourself. First, I should tell you that if I'm not mistaken, in that discussion on bad natives, I mentioned that voter turnout will be something like 45%, and Museveni will get about 65% to 45%. I believe that actual voter turnout could even have been 45 or 40. Because in this election, the opposition, NUP, was very weak and absent on most of the polling stations across the country. The likelihood that in very many NRM strongholds, because there was no voter verification biometric system used, opportunities for NRM people to tick for the president and the MPs to exploit the process, also tick for themselves, were very high. It's very possible that anything between 1.5 to 2 million votes were of people who did not show up but voted. Also, I want to put a caveat on what I say. It is not always the case that because they ticked for somebody, it means he was not a potential supporter. It may be a potential supporter, a real supporter who did not show up. And I've seen this in NRM strongholds. If you go to the Kato Corridor, Nakaseke, those areas of Sembabele, which are Kyagulanyi, where the Balalu are, and other areas in Sinjiro, where you find high concentrations of NRM support, they could say, hey, how come Mukazambile did not show up? Okay, they vote for him. Mwenda katiziri, Muteri. Do you see? They vote for them. It happens so often. That does not reflect a weakness on the part of the rigging party. It reflects overwhelming strength. That if the opposition has a polling agent, he is a lukewarm support of the opposition, they give him 50K, he sends the declaration forms, or in most cases, I need new people to be honest. I don't think they were in more than 35% of the polling stations in the country. So if you cannot even get a polling agent at a station, how do you expect to get the vote? So that is the first thing, that voter turnout was much less than 52%. I suspect it could be anything between 40 to 45%. In fact, I'm even shocked that Bobi Wine got 2.7 million votes. 24%. Let's say 24.7, which is roughly 25. I want to round up to the nearest tenth. He got 25%. It means that maybe in areas where he's strong also did the same thing. Remember that it is the opposition, people who have been in the opposition can say this, where they're also strong and they have that kind of cultural and political strength, they will tick the ballots of those who have not shown up. Maybe Bobi Wine got 2 million votes, Museveni got 6 million votes. Museveni got 7.9, but maybe he got 6. 1.9 are extras. Bobi Wine is 700 or 1 million are extras. But by and large, what you see as the outcome is a sign of the relative strength of these candidates. Now, of course, in Uganda's history, we don't have members of parliament being re-elected. I'm going to do statistics. I've not yet finished them. I was working on them today. How many members of parliament were in the previous house and have been re-elected? What is their share? In the last election of 2021, less than 20% of incumbents were re-elected. We need to find out how many in this were. So the loss of people like Katuntu and Semuju is therefore not surprising. In fact, Katuntu is unique in the sense that there are only 8 members of parliament in Uganda who have been elected 5 times straight. It is Kadaga, Katuntu, Elijah Cooper, Bakabulindi, this man of Remiyaga, who has also lost Chikubo, Okoto Gong, Bright Rwamirama in Isinjiro, who is there is a lady called Namuyanda. She's even a minister, one lady. There are 8 only. It's rare to have a person be elected 5 times in a row. So you will not be surprised that after 5, the only person who beats that record is President Yoweri Museveni. This isn't this seventh straight win. And so that is one factor. The other factor, of course, I also believe that I had my grandson on my left here and my granddaughter. First of all, Uganda's elections are never free or fair. If you look at the beginning of the election period from 2022 to 2025, the NRM will put so many roadblocks in the way of the opposition to win. They will block them from accessing radio stations, from opening offices, from having rallies in these areas long before elections. So I get surprised that new people complain that they steal their votes on the last day. In fact, they don't even understand the meaning of the argument. To say that they rigged them on polling day is to state that the electoral process, the electoral law, the field was all leveled and they only lost because of the balloting. No, they lose much earlier than that. The state uses all the resources of, the NRM uses the resources of the state to get an unfair advantage. What they believe is that Museveni has presented the opposition a very critical dilemma. They face two choices and they have failed to craft a third. Should we participate in a deeply flawed electoral process where we are certain to lose? There is not a single rational Ugandan who did not know who was going to win the presidential election. If you are Ugandan there listening to me, tell me, is there any one of you who did not know who the president-elect would be today? Okay. So the challenge for them has been, should we participate in a deeply flawed electoral process and therefore legitimize it? Or should we boycott this flawed electoral process but miss an opportunity to put our case before the people of Uganda, our grievances, our ideas about the future, to reach out to them and rally them? But in avoiding to legitimize the election, we lose two things. We are unable to present ourselves to the country and hear our grievances and our ideas, but also we sink into oblivion, because if you boycott, you cease to be of any political relevance. Now, I believe that the opposition have always been correct to say no. Let us participate in spite of the flawed process, not because we shall win, like at the presidential level, but because it gives us an opportunity to reach out to the people of Uganda and sell our case. Now, once they have made the second decision, which I think is strategically correct, they make the wrong choice out of it. Because if you have now participated and legitimized the process, you cannot turn out like Besigye and finally now Bobby Wine. You know, I once wrote an article, the Besigyeization of Bobby Wine. I cannot believe that Bobby Wine is walking the very same path of mistakes that Besigye made during his career. Because if you have legitimized the process by participating in it, you are bound by its outcome and you should accept it. None of the contestants can say there is anything Museveni has done in this election of 2026 which he didn't do in 2021, which he did not do in 2016 or 2011 or 2006, 2001 and 1996. If anyone says there's something new Museveni has done, they should come and challenge me. So Museveni's toolkit for every election is known. What surprises and also depresses me is that the opposition's response has been the same. They have not innovated any new idea, first on how to participate in this election, either through new maneuvers and tactics that can involve deceit, decoys, whatever it is that you can do to avoid the roadblocks that have been put in your way. A good strategist looks at the terrain and decides, there's a swamp, how do I dodge it? There's a marshland there, a mountain, a valley, a lake, a river. These are obstacles in my way. If I'm a soldier, a commander commanding an army, a soldier commanding an army, an officer commanding an army, a priest leading their flock. We have a priest here, Bunjo. Where you go into a hostile environment, how do you ensure that you collect your flock and they are not killed? So the opposition have done no innovation at all. And finally, if they have accepted to participate, which means they are legitimizing the system, I feel like if I was Bobby Wine, and so sad I am not, after an election, I should not only concede, but I should find a way to work with Museveni. I should be the one reaching out. This is where I think this Raila Odinga man was amazing. Raila held Kenya together. These people are trying to tear it apart because he understood that, okay, the process may not be fair. I may have lost unfairly. Twice he won an election, twice he was cheated. But twice he did a handshake and found a way to work with the existing system. So you move, once an election is ended, you stop being a grievance-driven radical activist against the establishment. you become a respectable and acceptable stakeholder in the political process. And I believe that had the opposition adopted this other strategy, which actually is the inevitable outcome of them accepting to participate, they would have performed better in shaping the destiny of this country alongside the NRM than the option they have taken of defiance, and now what is the one of whatever, of boycott of government, declaring
Protest
it's
vote.
illegal, it's criminal, he's Maduro, he's a dictator. They put themselves in a much weaker position than they would have been.